Hey everyone, this is Bizzler on YouTube. Hey, about 2 weeks ago I bought a D800, upgraded from my old D300, and I thought I'd make a little video just to tell you some of the pros and cons that I've noticed, some issues that I've had, just tips so that if you're thinking of buying one of these, you'll be well informed, or at least from my standpoint. So I upgraded from a D300, not the D300S, so in case I say anything that's like a new feature, it might be new to me, maybe not even new to the D300S. But, here we go. Got the camera used, got it off eBay. They were pretty much impossible to find anywhere new when I was looking to buy one. So I bought one used. I got it from a guy that ran a photography studio, said he used it in the studio. It had 1,400 actuations on it, which wasn't much in my opinion. I've had my D300 for about 4 years and I have only about 20-some thousand actuations, so 1,000-some wasn't a big deal to me. Sold my old lens, which was an 18-200 DX lens. Needed to get FX lenses, so I picked up this, which I've used a couple times before. I've rented it before. I finally just bought one. It is a 70-200 VR1. I didn't want to really spend the extra money for the VR2 since I've used this before and I was happy with it. Maybe eventually I'll upgrade, but for now, this does me just fine. I also bought a 50mm 1.4 over the 1.8, which I've had before in the past. I figured I'd just take it one more step. It's a good camera, it's worthy of a good lens. Instead of just a $100 lens, this is a 400-some. I think I got it used for about $380, something like that. This one, picked this up used. Everything I get used, I save so much money buying used. Got this off eBay for I think $1,400, so I'm happy. Anyway, so some of the pros that I've noticed. The ISO is pretty amazing compared to my D300, which the ISO was great on that. I had a D80 before that, and even the D300 was amazing, but this is even better. All the way up, there's, you know how Nikon has the high and low above the normal numbers. It has 4 highs above the 6400, I believe is the top, the highest you can go. Yeah, and there's 4 stops above that. And I think the highest, H2.0, is like 250,000 ISO or something like that. It's pretty amazing. I was taking pictures with it in almost complete darkness and looking at them on the camera, and it was like night vision pretty much. I couldn't even see the ground. I took a picture, I looked at it, I could see it. There was a little bit of noise, but for 256,000 ISO, it's not bad at all. So I try not to go into the highs. I try to keep it at 6400 as highest, but it's pretty good. Another thing that I like is the bracketing. I used bracketing on my D300. I sort of worked on some HDRs, but they weren't all that great because you couldn't really get as far as you needed with those 5 stops. You needed a little bit more, and this does. It has 9 stops, so I can go 4 underexposed, 4 overexposed, and 1 right in the middle, which works great for HDR software because you get the whole range. Whereas with the D300, the 5, there really wasn't that much of a difference. With this, you get a huge difference in exposure from the bottom to the top, so I love that. It has a built-in HDR function. I'll talk about that here in just a bit. Another thing I like is the 2 memory slots. I only use 1 right now. I use the compact flash, but it also has an SD slot. You can use one or the other, or you can set them as like a primary and a backup. You can have them overflow to the other cards. You can have one type of image be stored to one, and like your RAWs be stored to another, like your JPEGs and RAWs. So that's kind of cool. Right now, I run the Extreme 3. What is this? 16 gig. I have an Extreme 4 gig, which I was using in the D300, which I used all the time, and it was plenty, and it was fast, but the image files on this are so big, they're about 15 megs each if you're just shooting large JPEG, that I needed that extra space. If you shoot TIFF, I believe the TIFF files are incredibly big. They're like 80 to 100 megs. I don't shoot TIFF, so I'm not really sure the exact file size on those. Another cool feature is the built-in flash. Well, it's not really a cool feature, but it works really well compared to like that of my D300. It's very wide. I was out shooting pictures of my friend biking the other night. We're doing some night shots on some jumps, and I had a remote flash off in the background, shooting from a little bit at an angle behind him. The batteries in it went dead, and this flash just sort of took over, and it was doing the lighting. And I couldn't figure out why and how my flash that was behind him to the side was illuminating the entire front of him, and it was because of this. And I was shooting pretty wide, and it was illuminating the entire shot, and it was doing it really well, a lot better than I would expect from a little built-in flash. I use my built-in flash for my commander mode, which I have tied to my function button on the front, so I don't have to dig through the menus. It's kind of nice to just hit my function button and have my commander mode pop right up so I can control my remote flashes. Another thing that's pretty nice is the video. It is amazing. I love the video in this. It's such high quality. Even when I put it on YouTube and look at it in 1080p, it's still perfect. It's crystal clear. I've never used video on an SLR before. Not my SLR, at least. I've seen it on the other SLRs and witnessed it and whatnot, but not the 1080p and not with the clarity of this thing. It's great. The sound also amazed me. Before I got this, while it was coming in the mail, I was researching videos and sound and whatnot, and a lot of people were showing the difference between the sound, the built-in mic, and the mic that you attach to the top. And the mic that you attach to the top was really nice, and I was like, the built-in mic's crap, I'm going to have to get that. But I shot a band the other night and used my built-in mic. I was about 15 feet from the band, and there was 2 giant speakers on each side of me, and I thought that it was just going to overpower this little mic, and I was just going to get static. But it turned out great. You can actually see it if you go down through my older videos. It's maybe a week old now. It picked up the basses, the trebles, the vocals. It was great. I was extremely impressed. So I'm not really even thinking about that external mic now, unless I really get into videography, which probably not won't, at least for now. Now for some cons. It does have an HDR built-in function, which I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it will give your pictures more dynamic range, but not anywhere close to how much dynamic range you would get if you bracketed 9 images and used software. I found that comparing a normal shot to the HDR shot, there's really not that much of a difference, not in any of the tests that I did with it. Maybe some instances you might tell a difference, but it's not going to give you HDR images like you see on interfacelift.com wallpapers that people put on there. It's nowhere near that. You need software for that. Also, when you use the HDR function, after it takes the image, it processes it to put it together, and it kind of delays your camera. So if you're shooting action shots or whatever, you're frozen pretty much for a couple seconds while it processes that until you can shoot more. So I just leave it off. No big deal to me. It doesn't bother me that much. I'm used to not having it with the D300. It is kind of slow when it's processing, that I've noticed. I like to shoot pictures and almost right away check it. And sometimes when I pull up my image to review it and start moving around, it'll freeze up on me. And I think it's because it's processing the image or transferring the image to my memory card. I mean, that's an Extreme 3, so it's still pretty quick compared to the Extreme 2 or whatever, normal cards. But it freezes up, and I'll sit there and nothing. And I'm not really sure right now if I hit play to put it away and then bring it back up again, or if I switch off the camera. But either way, it freezes it up, so I don't know if it's processing or not, but that's kind of weird. I'm not used to that with the D300. Maybe it's just file size. Also, the USB is kind of weird. Let's see if I can show you. It's a little, like a dual plug. I don't know if you can see it from there. It's USB, but it's like 2 USBs together. And I'm sort of getting used to it. When I first got it, it's kind of like, I feel like if I'm going to push it in there, I'm going to strip something. So I have to make sure you can't really feel it as you go in. It's just sort of, you have to watch it pretty much to make sure you get lined in. I don't want to mess anything up. Maybe it won't mess anything up, but it's just kind of weird. I have no idea why there's 2 either. I don't know if it charges through that. No clue. I could probably look it up, but next, the autofocus with the video is kind of weird. I can, with autofocus on, I can hold it and it'll focus somewhere, move to somewhere else and it'll focus, move to a third spot, and it just sits there. The entire image is blurry. I thought maybe it was something and that it was in focus and it thought that that's what I was trying to record, but the entire thing is blurry. So I'll have to almost like push it to focus on that by going to something and then something else, and then it wakes up and it realizes that it's out of focus. So if you're, I don't know if it's a bug in the software, I have no idea. Maybe it's the lens, could be that too. So if you're intending to use this solely for videography, you might want to wait and see, or search forums, see if other people have had this issue. Maybe you don't need autofocus, I don't know, but that's an issue. Also, next, this strap is like nothing. It's barely there. My D300 had a pretty good strap. I never upgraded it. It's thicker than this, and this is a heavier camera with a thinner strap. This thing is not going to last me that long. I'm going to have to switch this thing out, especially if I'm shooting with the 70-200, because it's just, it feels like sandpaper on your neck after a while. So definitely consider thinking about buying a new strap. If not right when you buy the camera, pretty soon after. You'll thank me. Also some notes. This one does have a bigger LCD than the D300 that I used. So I'm keeping the screen protector on this one, I noticed, because the D300 almost had almost like a little ridge around here that made me feel safe with it. I mean, I've never used the protector ever, but this is so flush to the camera body, and it's almost elevated a little bit, that I feel like if I drop this, it probably would break. So I'm going to keep this on here as much as possible, because this is a pretty hefty investment here, and I want to take care of it. Another thing that I like is the knob on top, where you can choose mirror up, timer, high speed, low speed, whatever. On the D300, it had that same knob, but you had to turn the camera up to look at it. So if you're behind the camera, if you had it on a tripod or something, you'd have to almost stand on your toes to see which one you're on. Whereas this one, you can see it from behind. Maybe that's a feature that Nikon's had for a while, but it wasn't on my D300, and I really like that, being able to see that from right behind. Also, battery use. This thing sucks down some batteries, not crazy fast, but a lot faster than my D300. A couple times I left my D300 on for a week, and I'd come back to it and it would still have battery power. I mean, it wasn't being used, the LCD screen wasn't on, the only thing that was on was the little screen on top there. But after a week, it still had battery power. Maybe this one will do the same thing, but with the video and the live view, if you're shooting video, and reviewing images, and the big file size, it drains the battery a little bit faster. So if you're going into like wedding photography and whatever, you'll want to have that battery pack on the bottom to give you some extra shots in there, especially if you're doing video. But overall, I love this thing. This thing's amazing. It's getting me some awesome shots compared to my D300. I had to do a lot more work with the D300, a lot more messing with the settings and getting my f-stop exactly right, and the shutter speed. This is just beautiful image after beautiful image. Probably has a lot to do with the FX sensor size compared to the DX, and the lenses that I'm using, a lot higher quality lenses. But so if you get this camera, invest in some lenses, because if you're walking around with like an 18-55 without VR or something like that on this body, no, don't do that. Get some good optics for it. You'll be glad. Overall, it's great. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I can try to figure them out, or if you want me to test anything, put it in the comments below, and I'll give it a shot. Thanks for watching. Bye.